Hello, and welcome to the Wonder and Whimsy Podcast. I'm Kimberly, and this is.
Hey, my name is Justin David.
And today we're going to be discussing the philosophy of love. February is considered the month of love for many, so that's going to be the topic for February. And we're going to be reading a couple short stories, songs, some quotes. The first story I've never read before. I've heard about it, but you've actually read it, A Dill
Yeah,
Pickle.
yeah, it's like a super relatable story, I feel, for everybody.
I'm really excited to read it live for the
Mm.
first time with you. Um, okay, so I guess you can be the guy, I'll be the girl. Does that sound
Yeah.
good?
What about the in-between parts? Do you
The
want to take that or
narration.
yeah,
Do you want to do it? Want to flip a
let's try it
coin?
out. Let's try it out. Let's try it out, all right?
Okay.
Cool. And then after 6 years, she saw him again. He was seated at one of those little bamboo tables decorated with a Japanese vase of paper daffodils. And there was a tall plate of fruit in front of him, and very carefully, in a way she recognized him immediately as his special way. He was peeling an orange. He must have felt that shock of recognition in her, for he looked up and met her eyes. Incredible! He didn't know her. She smiled. He frowned. She came towards him. He closed his eyes in an instant, but opening them, his face lit up as though he had struck a match in a dark room. He laid down the orange, pushed back his chair, and she took her little warm hand out of her muff and gave it to him. Vera! He exclaimed. How strange. Really, for a moment I didn't know you. Want you to sit down? You've had lunch? Want you to have some coffee? She
She
hesitated, but of
hesitated.
course she meant to.
Yes, I'd like some coffee. And she sat down opposite him.
You changed. You changed very much, he said, staring at her with that eager, lighted look. You look so well. I've never seen you look so well before.
Really?
She raised her veil and unbuttoned her high fur collar.
I don't feel very well. I can't bear this weather, you know.
Ah, no, you hate the cold.
Loathe it.
She shuddered.
And the worst of it is that the older one grows.
He interrupted her. Excuse me, and tapped on the table for the waitress. Please bring some coffee and cream. To her, you sure you want anything? Some fruit, perhaps? I mean, the fruit here is very good.
No thanks, nothing.
And that settled. And smiling just a hint too broadly, you took up the orange again. So you were saying the older one grows.
The older one grows, the colder.
She laughed, but she was thinking how well she remembered that trick of his, the trick of interrupting her, and how it used to exasperate her 6 years ago. She used to feel then as though he, quite suddenly, in the middle of what she was saying, put his hand over her lips, turned from her, attending to something different, and then took his hand away, and with the same slightly too broad smile, gave her his attention again. Now we are ready. That's settled. The colder! He echoed her words, laughing too. Ah, you still say the same things. And there is another thing about you that has not changed at all. Your beautiful voice, your beautiful way of speaking. Now he was very grave. He leaned towards her, and she smelled the warm, stinging scent of the orange peel. You have only to say one word, and I would know your voice among all the other voices. I don't know what it is. I've often wondered that makes your voice such a haunting memory. Do you remember that first afternoon we spent together at Kew Gardens? You were so surprised because I did not know the names of any flowers. I mean, I'm still just as ignorant for all you're telling me. But whenever it is very fine and warm, and I see some bright colors, it's awfully strange. I hear your voice saying geranium, marigold, and verbena. And I feel those three words are all that I recall of some forgotten heavenly language. You remember that afternoon?
Oh, yes, very well.
She drew a long, soft breath, as though the paper daffodils between them were almost too sweet to bear. Yet, what had remained in her mind of that particular afternoon was an absurd scene over the tea table. A great many people taking tea in a Chinese pagoda, and he was behaving like some kind of maniac about the wasps, waving them away, flapping them with his straw hat, serious and infuriated out of all proportion to the occasion. How delighted the sniggering tea drinkers had been, and how she had suffered. But now, as he spoke, that memory faded. His was a truer. Yes, it had been a wonderful afternoon, full of geranium and marigold and verbena and warm sunshine. Her thoughts lingered over the last two words, though she sang them. In the warmth, as it were, another memory unfolded. She saw herself sitting on the lawn. He lay beside her, and suddenly, after a long silence, he rolled over and put his head in her lap. I wish, he said in a low, troubled voice, I wish I had taken poison and were about to die. Here, now. At that moment, a little girl in a white dress, holding a long, dripping water lily, dodged from behind a bush, stared at them, and dodged back again. But he didn't see. She leaned over at him.
Ah, why do you say that? I could not say that.
But he gave a kind of soft moan and taking her hand and held it to his cheek. Because I know I'm going to love you too much, far too much, and I shall suffer so terribly, Vera, because you never, never will love me. He was certainly far better looking now than he had been then. He had lost all that dreamy vagueness and indecision. Now he had an air of a man who has found his place in life and fills it with the confidence and assurance which was, to say the least, impressive. He must have made money too. His clothes were admirable. And at the moment, he pulled a Russian cigarette case out of his pocket. Won't you smoke?
Yes, I will.
She hovered over them.
They look very good.
I think they are. I get them made for me by a little man in St. James Street. I don't smoke very much. I'm not like you, but when I do, they must be delicious. Very fresh cigarettes. Smoking isn't a habit with me. It's a luxury, like perfume. Are you still so fond of perfumes? Well, when I was in Russia, she broke in.
You've really been to Russia?
Yes, I was there for over a year. I mean, have you forgotten how we used to talk about going there?
No, I haven't forgotten.
He gave a strange half laugh and leaned back in his chair. Isn't it curious? I have really carried out all those journeys that we planned. Yeah, I've been to all those places that we talked to and stayed in them long enough, as you used to say, air oneself in them. In fact, I spent the last 3 years of my life traveling all the time. Spain, Corsica, Siberia, Russia, Egypt. The only country left is China, and I mean to go there too when the war is over. As he spoke so lightly, tapping the end of a cigarette against the ashtray, she felt the strange beast that had slumbered so long within her bosom stir, stretch itself, yawn, prick up its ears, and suddenly bound to its feet and fixed its longing, hungry stare upon those far away places. But all she said was, smiling gently,
How I envy you.
he accepted that. It has been, he said, very wonderful, especially Russia. Russia was all that we had imagined and far more. I even spent some days on the riverboat on the Volga. Do you remember that boatman song they used to play?
Yes.
And it began to play in her mind as she spoke. Dare we play it now?
Uh, no, I have no piano.
He was amazed at that. But what has become of your beautiful piano? She made a little grimace.
Sold ages ago.
But you were so fond of music, he wondered,
I have no time for it now.
said she. Let it go at that. That river life, he went on, is something quite special. After a day or two, you cannot realize that you have ever known another. And it's not necessary to know the language, the life of the boat that creates a bond between you and the people. That's more than sufficient. You eat with them, pass a day with them. In the evening, there's that endless singing. She shivered, hearing the boatman's song break out again, loud and tragic, and seeing the boat floating on the darkening river with the melancholy trees on either side,
Yes, I should like that.
said she, stroking her muff. You like almost everything about the Russian life, he said warmly. It's so informal, so impulsive, so free without question. And the peasants are so splendid. They are such human beings. Yes, that's it. Even the man who drives your carriage has some real part in what's happening. I remember the evening of a party of us. Two friends of mine and the wife of one of them went for a picnic by the Black Sea. We took supper and champagne and ate and drank on the grass. And while we were eating, the coachman came up. Have a dill pickle, he said. He wanted to share with us. And that seemed to me so right. So, you know what I mean? And she seemed at that moment to be sitting on the grass beside the mysteriously black sea, black as velvet, and rippling against the banks in the silent, well, velvet waves. She saw the carriage drawn up to one side of the road, and the little group and the little group on the grass, their faces and hands white in the moonlight. She saw the pale dress of the woman outspread and her folded parasol lying on the grass like a huge pearl crochet hook. Apart from them, with his supper in cloth on his knees, sat the coachman. Have a dill pickle, said he. And although she was not certain what a dill pickle was, she saw the greenish glass jar with a red chili like a Paris beak glimmering through. She sucked in her cheeks. The dill pickle was terribly sour.
Yes, I know perfectly what you mean.
So in the pause that followed, they looked at each other. In the past, they had looked at each other like that they had felt such boundless understanding between them that their souls had, as it were, put their arms around each other and dropped into the same sea, content to be drowned, like mournful lovers. But now the surprising thing was that he who held back, he who said, "What a marvelous listener you are. When you look at me with those wild eyes, I feel that I could tell you things that I would never breathe to another human being." Was there just a hint of mockery in his voice, or was it her fancy? She could not be sure. Before I met you, he said, I had never spoken of myself to anybody. How well I remember one night, the night that I brought you the little Christmas tree, telling you all about my childhood and of how I was so miserable that I ran away and lived under a cart in our yard for 2 days without being discovered. And you listened, and your eyes shone. And I felt that you had even made the little Christmas tree listen too, as in a fairy story. But of that evening, she had remembered a little pot of caviar. It had lost 7 and 6 pence. It had cost 7 and 6 pence. He could not get over it. Think of it, a tiny jar, like that costing 7 and 6 pence. While she ate it, he watched her, delighted and shocked. No, really, that is eating money. You cannot even get it 7 shillings into that little pot that size. Only think of the profit that they must make. And he had begun some immensely complicated calculations. But now, goodbye to the caviar. The Christmas tree was on the table, and the little boy lay under the cart with his head pillowed on the yard dog. The dog was called Buzzin', she cried delightedly, but he did not follow. Which dog? Had you a dog? I don't remember a dog at all. No, no, I meant the yard dog when you were a little boy. He laughed and snapped a cigarette case too. Was he? Do you know that I had forgotten that? It seems such ages ago that I cannot believe that it was only 6 years. After I had recognized you today, I had to take such a leap. I had to take a leap over my whole life just to get back to that time. I was such a kid back then. He drummed on the table. I have often thought about how I must have bored you, and now I understand so perfectly why you wrote to me as you did. Although at the time, that letter nearly finished my life. I found it again under the other day, and I couldn't help laughing as I read it. It was so clever, such a true picture of me. He glanced up. You're not going? She had buttoned up her collar again and drawn down her veil.
Yes, I am afraid I must.
She said, and managed a smile. Now she knew that he had been mocking. Oh, no, please, he pleaded. Don't go just for a moment. And he caught up one of those gloves from the table and clutched at it as if that would hold her. I see so few people to talk to nowadays that I have turned into some sort of barbarian, he said. Have I said something to hurt you?
Not a bit.
She lied. But as she watched him draw her glove through his fingers, gently, gently, her anger really did die down. And besides, at the moment, he looked more like himself of one of he looked more like himself of 6 years ago. What I really wanted then, he said softly, was to be a sort of carpet, to make myself into a sort of carpet for you to walk on, so that you need not to be hurt by the sharp stones and mud that you hated so. There was nothing more positive than that, nothing more selfish. Only I did desire, eventually turn into a magic carpet and carry you away with all those lands, to all those lands that you longed to see. As he spoke, she lifted her head as though she drank something. The strange beast in her bosom began to purr. I felt that you were more lonely than anybody else in the world, he went on. And yet, perhaps that you were the only person in the world who was really truly alive, born out of born out of your time, he murmured, stroking the glove. Faded. Ah, God, what has she done? How had she dared to throw away her happiness like this? This was the only man who had ever understood her. Was it too late? Could it be too late? She was the glove that he held in his fingers. And then the fact that you had no friends and never made friends with people. I mean, how I understood that, for neither had I. Is it just the same now?
Yes,
She breathed.
just the same. I am as alone as ever.
So am I. Just the same. Suddenly, with a quick gesture, he handed her back the glove and scraped his chair on the floor. But what seemed to me so mysterious then is perfectly plain to me now. And to you, of course. It simply was that we were such egoists, so self-engrossed, so wrapped up in ourselves that we hadn't a corner in our hearts for anybody else. Do you know? He cried, naive and hearty, and dreadfully like another side of that old self again. I began studying a mind system when I was in Russia, and I found that we were not peculiar at all. It's quite a well-known form of. She had gone. He sat there, thunderstruck, astounded beyond words, and then he asked the waitress for his bill. But the green has not been touched, he said. Please do not charge me for it. Golly. Sorry
Wow.
for all those little flubs I had there.
No, I really like listening to you read that. I didn't realize you'd be reading like 90% of it. I had like a few.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. You have a
Thank you,
great
thank you, thank you.
way of storytelling. I love that bit at the end, how he's being like stingy, like, oh, the cream hasn't been
Yeah,
touched, so I don't need to pay for it. It's
right,
a nice way to kind of wrap up
right,
his lack of change. I like the symbolism of the dill pickle because to me that sort of
right.
symbolizes like the bitterness. It's like the opposite of sweet. It's like
Mm,
heavily symbolic. Like this is like a sour memory. But I like the tone of this,
right.
how it's nostalgic and how it sort of suggests that sometimes people don't change. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of people can relate to running into like an ex and trying to kind of like, oh, check in, like, how have you been? And then those old feelings come back. But then you
Right.
realize the reason it didn't work out. And so unless
Yeah.
people have like really changed, it's just sort of
Right.
like beating a dead horse. But I think it's
I
written
think
written really well. What did you think?
no, I resonate hardcore with everything that you just said because like, when people run into someone from their past, like no matter how it is that you left them, I feel like, everyone is still open to giving that interaction a chance, like especially after it's been some time. If you left them on a sour note, if you left them on a positive note, if you left them on a sad note, no matter what it is, but you yourself can kind of tell like I think who is the one that has changed since that
Yeah.
time, like if it's yourself, or you can recognize that they are not the same person that they were when they were with you, or
Hmm.
more often than not, they're just the same person. They're just, uh, they just cosplay themselves a little bit differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They
Like,
might have like a different social mask. Like they might have
right.
changed jobs, they might have developed new skills, they might
Mm,
have different life experiences, but
yeah.
and that does bring up another interesting question is, you know, how much can we actually change? Because much
Mm,
of our lives, it feels like I'd like to believe that I've evolved and like
yeah.
every year I get a little wiser, a little more well-adjusted. I get a little better at relationships, being a better
Mm,
friend, being a better actor, being a better, and I'd like to think I'm constantly evolving and growing, but I
mm,
also feel like there's certain traits I have that I've had since I was a kid. And I don't
right.
know if those traits will ever, I feel like there is something unique to our essence that stays stagnant throughout our whole lives. So it's like we
Yeah.
are constantly changing to an extent, but also it's just an interesting question. Like, do people actually change? You know?
Mm. Like, do you feel, sorry, wait, were you done?
No, I'm asking you, like, what do you think
Oh,
about that question? What do you think about that question? Like, do you think people can actually change?
wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Like, I think that if this sounds really like, woo woo and whatever, but I think like a lot of that stuff kind of comes down to your belief systems and also like how much confidence you have. Because like I think competence is also the equivalent of confidence. The more confidence you have in something or like whatever it is about yourself, the more confident you're going to be. And like I think a true signifier of change is the confidence that you gain over the course of time. Like small micro progressions show like lasting massive changes. It's kind of like dieting. It's like when you take out, certain macronutrients, certain like foods from your day to day, you start noticing changes in your physique, right? It's the same thing with your personality. But also you have to be, I think that you have to get to a place where you are open to being critiqued and also self-analysis. Like at the end of the day, people can tell you what's wrong or why certain things go the way they did, and you can self-soothe all you want. But if you're not willing to accept like the harsh reality of the nature of the beast that you truly are, in whatever form that is, it's like you want to have changes in your relationship, check yourself before you start pointing fingers at everyone else. Like first place to check is always yourself. And I do firmly believe that you can change, but I think people that are unwilling to change, not saying this for everyone, but like I feel like it's been become popularized to have like I'm trying to be mindful of my words here, to have like hmm, to have a very reassuring, reinforced victim mentality
Oh,
that's masked as empowerment, you know?
oh yeah. I
Yeah.
follow. I follow.
Because it's like, check yourself. You know, like, are we really reinforcing a narrative for true empowerment and change? Or are we reinforcing a narrative for to stay the same and just meet our social demands, you know?
Mhm.
But yeah.
That brings up an interesting point when it comes to like love and relationships and breakups. You know,
Mm,
this is a
yeah.
story about a relationship that didn't work out. Um,
Right.
and a lot of times, I hear stories from people that are like oversharing. They feel like they were the victim in the relationship, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like person A and person B both feel victimized by the other,
Right.
right? And so I hear stories like this a lot.
Yeah.
No, I was the one who did everything right and they didn't appreciate me. And then it's almost
Mm,
like I
no. Yeah.
feel like
Like
when it comes to stories like that, there's always three sides to every story. There's person A, there's person B, and then the truth might lie somewhere in the middle because or
right.
it's not like either one of them are intentionally lying necessarily. They're just sharing their perspective. And naturally,
Right.
two people are going to have two different perspectives of the same memory. And that's another thing I like that this story sort of brings up is that they talk about having the shared memory, right?
Right.
But they remember it a little differently. So
Right.
the memory to one of them means something different than the memory to someone else. And it kind of reminded me of in relationships where I'll be with someone and then they'll be like, "Oh, remember this and remember that?" And I remember having these conversations like in the past like
Right.
anytime they would bring up like the getting to know you phase. Okay, remember when we started to get to know you?
Yeah.
And I thought this and I thought that they were like assuming things that I was thinking that I was so far off base, you know, like, oh, I thought that
Right.
you just like thought I was an idiot. I thought you thought this. I thought you were having a horrible time. But then my perception of that memory was like, oh no, I'm having a great time, you know? So
Right.
it's like you and I can share an experience and have completely two different perceptions of that experience. I might be really enjoying myself, and but you might perceive it as me, like questioning if you're an idiot or not, you know? Because that
Right.
I
Right.
was just thinking of like a specific example in my personal life where that happened. So I think that's always very interesting when it comes to relationships and how we perceive our experiences together, a shared experience. And what
Mm.
is true? Like, are both perspectives valid, or is there an objective truth? What do you think?
Like, no, I appreciate you sharing your personal experience with that. Of like, people are kind of projecting an idea of what ever happened in their past onto their new person that they're dating. It's actually pretty fascinating every time that happens. But like, I think whenever people are sharing their perspectives and like, I know, like, I'm sure that I'm guilty of this, especially in my past, like, but I hope I don't repeat the same mistakes. I can only hope that. But it's like whenever two people are sharing their perspective of something like, something in the story where this dude's just going on and on about like, oh my God, remember when we did this? It was such a fun time because of that song or the boatman, whatever. And then she's over there like, yeah, dude, you were like literally losing your mind, like swatting bugs with your straw hat. Like you were embarrassing me, like it comes down to the key values and the key points where like, what stuck out the most to them.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, it's, I guess like, if you're someone could be a heavy romantic and they might just be like, oh my God, I'm so glad that you were just sitting right next to me and we had that moment to just cheers our drinks. Whereas that other person's like, we literally just cheers to drink, dude. Like it's not that deep, you know? And it's
Hmm.
a common thing. It depends on the person. So
Yeah.
I think whenever there's people that are, going back to your question, like, if there's people that are in a sense of arguing, talking about like, oh well this happened and blah 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 and then this happened and there's person A and B are talking about it, but it's like it doesn't I think you know how people talk about intentions a lot?
Hmm.
People are just like, yo, well, I when I did this, this was my intention, but their actions don't reflect that intention. It's like it's cute that you have those intentions, but your behavior does not reflect that. It's kind of like whenever people are going back and forth with the whole, well, I had experienced this with person A, and person B is like, well, I experienced this. Like, are you trying to mask what actually happened with your intention and your idea of who you think you are in this particular instance, or are you actually like experiencing the truth? You know, like, and then I think it goes back to how we all communicate with each other. I think there's a lack of understanding in most relationships because like your situation where someone thought that you thought that they were an idiot, it's like, well, take the time to understand each other before you make assumptions. Assumptions are not good unless you're trying to forecast something that's useful, and you better be really good at forecasting.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Sorry, that was a long tangent there, but yeah.
No, you said a couple things that I thought were really interesting. One, when it comes to intention, it sort of raises the question, well, should I forgive someone just because they didn't intend to hurt me? Should I forgive someone just because they didn't intend to be inconsiderate? Maybe they
No,
didn't, maybe they
let me
didn't,
split.
maybe they didn't intend to insult me. Maybe they didn't intend to
Yeah.
waste time,
Right.
but should I forgive them based on their intentions? Um,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Does that just because
Yeah.
I feel like relation when it comes to like romantic relationships, especially, you can intend on having a lot of fun. You can intend on bringing out the best in each other. You can intend on treating them well. But
Right.
if they're not getting what they need, if they're not feeling valued, if they're not having fun, then it's kind of like
Right.
doesn't really matter what your intentions are because the end result is that this isn't
Exactly.
fun. Like I'm not enjoying this at all, you know?
Right. 100%.
So, but going back to that other question, I was asking, do you think that when there is like a disagreement, not necessarily just in relationships, but like
Mm.
say like you have person A and person B that both have a shared memory, but they
Mm.
have a different perception of that shared memory. Do you think that both of their perspectives are valid, or do you think that the truth is actually objective?
I think that both of the perspectives, like, it's valid if they both are willing to also accept that each other's experience of that instance is valid, Because,
Mhm.
like, okay, hey, I'm going to tell you my truth. You're going to tell me your truth. Um, Listen, this is what X, Y, and Z had happened. Oh, okay, well, this is my interpretation of X, Y, and Z. And well, when X, Y, and Z happened, like, I understand that's your interpretation, but this is what happened, and this is how it affected me. Oh, okay. Well, I had no idea about that. I want to take responsibility for it because it was an honest mistake. We have to start having honest conversations because a lot of times whenever we're having these conversations to prove a point and to win, where it's like it's not a matter of winning, it's a matter of understanding. If
Mhm.
you're trying to lead with love, are you really leading with love if you just want to be on top of them and make them feel like they're under you, make them feel
Mhm.
small. That's what a lot of conversations are, especially in today's day and age, like that's why I think dating is so complicated and like, not complicated, dating's different, you know, and like, even in relationships, like, people are fearful to have conversations that are tough, the things that matter, you know, like it's just a matter of willing to understand and listen and not judge either, it's a lot of there's a lot of the opposite happening.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think you bring up a really interesting point when it comes to intention, actually. So when you're
Mm,
having a conversation or you're having a disagreement, if
yeah.
you practice the art of listening with the intention to understand, as
Mm,
opposed to listening with the intention to be understood,
mm,
that changes everything. So if I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about, is he understanding what I'm saying? Is he getting what I'm saying? Instead of, do I understand what he's saying? Can I understand what he's saying? So if that breeds a completely different dynamic, right?
1 million
So
percent.
so I think that's key when it comes
Yeah,
to healthy communication, and not just with like romantic love, but with friendship love, with family love, with all types of loving relationships. If you listen with the intention of wanting to understand, with trying to understand, as opposed to listening
yeah,
and all you're concerned about is being understood.
right.
So, do you
No, true,
understand?
because like,
Do you understand what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Do
it's
you
one
get
like
it?
what's his face? Old dude, Winston Churchill. He has that quote: "Seek first to understand, then to be understood."
Yeah.
You know, like if you were to approach a conflict or a situation with someone that you love, you know, not romantic, could be family, could be friends, could be. It's like it's like when you're hearing like a newborn start crying, or and you've had them for a long time, whatever, like not a long time, a couple of months. Eventually, you find the groove, but you're still understanding why they're crying. Are they crying because they took a shat? They took a crack in themselves, or they are they hungry, or are they scared? Are they cold? Whatever it is, like you're not gonna sit there and I would hope parents are not just shaking the baby and frustrated. They're just like, all right, okay, are you warmer now? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow, dude, your diaper is definitely like packed. I would be crying too, you know? Like kind of like with the dog. A dog is never going to talk to you, but eventually you'll learn their temperament because
Hmm.
you had no other choice but to understand them. And they have no other choice but to try to understand you too, you know?
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that with people. With people, we're just like we have expectations. We're quick to judge. We're so quick to, just try to make them feel make them feel like they are responsible for how we feel more so, you know? But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, because when you are in a relationship, it often feels like the other person is making you feel a certain way.
mm,
Like the
yeah,
reason I feel this way is because of you, instead
right,
of taking accountability and saying, I feel this way. And I think that healthy communication in relationships would work out a lot better if you start with I feel instead of you make me feel, right? Because
right,
when you hold accountability for your emotions, when you take responsibility for your emotions, like and you start focusing on how you feel,
right,
um, then it becomes about this is the way I feel, whether it's right or wrong, this is just how I feel.
right,
And I felt this way when you did this, maybe. But I also feel like part of the problem comes from trying to control the other person,
mm,
as
yeah,
well. And that
right,
brings up another concept of what is love, right?
mm,
Some people feel like some people have very specific notions of what love is. So when you enter a romantic relationship, if you don't share that same belief,
mm,
if your versions of love don't match up completely, there's going to be some disconnect, right? Because if I tell you I love you and I mean it in the way that I view love and I
right,
express it with my love language or however you want to call it, but the way you view love is something totally different, and you
right,
say you love me, it's like we're not going to be on the same page, right?
right,
So, so some people when they enter a romantic relationship and uh, the other person tells them I love you, they think, oh, now I expect. They start setting expectations for the other person. Well, you said you love me. So if you loved me, you would do this because that's what matches my version of love,
right,
without taking into consideration that everyone has a different perception of love. Uh,
100%. Like, no, piggybacking off of you is like, what all experiences did that person have leading up to that moment they met you? You know,
mhm.
like sometimes people have like, I don't know, I guess maybe the older you get, whenever someone tells you that they love you, you probably have a little more reservations and a little bit you're kind of slow to accept it. You're just like, oh, I've heard this before. Yeah, I've got this is my first rodeo, and it's like,
Right.
okay, well, if that's also like registered to the other person and it's not communicated, like, hey, I experienced this before. I love that you love me, but like, you know, we're gonna take some time to really experience each other and get to know each other and understand each other more versus, yeah, I love you too, buddy. Two very different like outcomes are promised. But also
Mhm.
like people, I think of everything in life, like in general, like I think pain and growth are twins. Like if you want a relationship in any kind, romantic, family, friendship, like if you're gonna try to make something work, it's not gonna be easy because you guys are two different people. Your
Mhm.
experiences make you who you are. Their experiences make them who they are. And also the way that they operate and make decisions are very, very different. So
Mhm.
like to become synergetic, it takes time, understanding, and really like cultivating a bond that needs love. Love is not, oh yeah, we're always feeling good. This is great. Like the fun's gonna come once, we're like this. But right
Mhm.
now we are like this. We can try to have fun, but it's gonna be like it's not gonna be synergetic. But at least like, okay, like it's your choice. It's ultimately at the end of the day, like it's your choice if you want to keep investing time and energy into cultivating something, or if you feel like you're beating a dead horse, like you can't be the only one making effort.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
and yeah, friendships, relationships, businesses, like if if your losses when you're looking at your P&Ls is like not looking good, it's like, do you have to let it go, or do you think it's worth another shot? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if relationships would be easier when it comes to love if, as soon as person A tells person B they love them, they explain what their definition of love is. You know what I mean? Like, I love you, but this is what I mean when I say I
Yeah.
love you. And then the other person says I love you, but this is what I mean when I say. And then they could just talk it out and figure out, okay, are we compatible? Are our love languages compatible? Or you know what I mean? Like I wonder if that would
Yeah.
just spoil all romance though, because like part of romance is sort of like a test of compatibility without
Mm,
because if you start analyzing if you start like overly talking about every little thing,
yeah.
because you can talk about something, but actually experiencing it is totally different. Because
Right.
I don't even know if you were able to have that conversation, like if that conversation felt comfortable in any social context. I
Yeah.
don't even know if that would really help because I could easily say, okay, I love you, but this is how I view love. I view love
Mm,
as a choice. I've chosen to love you. I'm choosing to give you my time, my energy, my affection, and I'm choosing to
mm,
share intimacy with just you. This is how I view love, and this is what I'm going to do.
right.
The other person could say, okay, well, I view love as just like a feeling. And the other person could be like, oh, well, I view love as like self-sacrifice. So I'm willing to sacrifice things for you. And that's
Right.
what I mean when I say I love you. I'm willing to like make a lot of sacrifices for you. And so,
Right.
but even having that conversation, I don't know if that would actually, do you think that would actually help? Or do you think that would hurt actually talking it out?
I mean, well, let me ask you this, like, if you don't mind, um, like, when you said your perspective of love, like, what is your personal perspective of love?
Oh gosh, well that's a really good question. That's what we're talking about on the
Mm,
podcast is what is love?
right.
So when it comes to romantic love,
Mm,
I tend to think of it as a choice.
mm,
I feel like I can choose to allow myself to fall in love with anyone. Now, this may just be because I'm an actor and I've
mm,
practiced the art of letting go of all my identity right before I play a part. I
yeah.
completely shed any preconceived notion about who I am, what I think of this, and I try to allow myself to be someone else. And so I've had to play parts where I've had to fall in love with someone. And it feels
mm,
really real in that moment because I'm allowing myself to fall in love. I feel like every human being has something beautiful about them, or at least that's
right.
what I'd like to think. But usually, if I
Mm,
take the time to get to know someone, I can find something endearing, something special, something captivating, something interesting about every person. And so,
right.
if I find that thing and I'm able to kind of surrender to that, I can almost, it feels like I can control it. I feel
Mm,
like I can control who I choose to love and choose not to. So when it comes to relationships, I feel like I can control it. However, now I'm totally going to contradict myself. At times, it feels like I can't. There have been
mm,
times where I feel like my logic and my emotions are completely at odds, where I
mm,
feel like I have all these strong feelings for someone. I want to be a good influence on them. I want to have a relationship with them and with only them. So those feelings feel like love. However,
mm,
logically, I know that it's not healthy, right? So sometimes like emotion and logic are at odds. So on one
interesting.
hand, I'd like to think it's something I can control and I can choose, like, okay, I can choose
Mm,
whether or not to allow myself to fall in love. I look at it as more of a verb. I love you because I choose to. I choose to spend time with you. I choose to,
mm,
express affection. I choose to.
yeah.
But on the other hand, there are many times where I'm like, this doesn't feel like I have any control of it. So that's another question. Like, is love an
Mm,
emotion? Is love a verb? Is love a choice? And that's why I think it's such an interesting topic. Some people think God is love. Some people
mm,
think love is connected to something spiritual.
yeah.
Some people think we can control it, some people think we can't. And it's an intangible concept that resonates differently with everyone.
Right.
So I go back and forth on what I think love is.
Yeah.
So I don't have like a concrete, like, I figured it out. It's still kind of it's still kind of a mystery to
Yeah.
me. But I will say I like to think that I can control it, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong. So
I
what do
appreciate you
you
sharing
think?
that. No, real talk, I appreciate you sharing that because like it is tough to share those type of things. Like, ah man, I want to dive deep into what you said though, because when you're saying that you're conflicted with, logic and emotion, it's like, what have you been fearful of when it comes to you not having control? What makes you shake the way that you do? Why, what is the fear or what is there that makes you feel the things that you do when it comes to love? And I'm assuming when you feel those things, you question yourself or question the love that you have or whatever, or question if it's even love, you
Hmm.
know? Like,
Yeah.
do you have like and sorry, like if you don't want to dive into it, you don't have to, but like, do you feel like there's like, you have a hard time trusting an experience that you're having with somebody after a certain period of time because your perspective on love is changing and you're questioning like your own decisions, you're questioning your decisions. Like, what do you think is, yeah, like what do you think it is?
What is your question exactly? What do I think what is?
Why do you have fear with love? Like, what's the what is that fear? Why are you conflicted between your logic and emotion?
Well, I'm not saying that I feel that way right now at any point or
Right.
anytime recently, but I'm saying in
Yeah.
the past. In the past, I've
Right.
definitely been in relationships in the past
Right.
where I felt
Right.
conflicted, where I felt like, oh, I have these strong emotional emotions for someone,
Yeah.
but logically on paper, I know that it's not healthy. Um, so
Okay.
in the past, I felt that way. I haven't really felt
Okay.
that way in the last, like, I don't know, 7 years. But in the past, I've definitely felt that way. Um, so what was your question again?
It's like basically why has there ever been doubt or conflict within yourself? Like why did it come up? Like,
Doubt
and
about the relationship or about doubt about the love that
the love.
Um, so I think in the past, I think my perception of love kind of changes with each relationship too, because I
Mm,
feel like with one person, you kind of teach people how to treat you, right?
yeah,
With one person, it's
100%.
like if I understand what their love language is, I can adapt and sort of
Right.
so it becomes a mutual fulfilling relationship if there's an element of compromise. But when
Right.
I start doubting, it's not that I start doubting that we love each other as best as we can with our own perception of love. I
Yeah.
start doubting like this relationship isn't going to last. This relationship ultimately
Mm,
isn't going to be healthy. I think there's probably something healthier out there for me. So it's
mm,
more, it's not necessarily like I'm doubting the love because I've been in relationships in the past where I felt like the love the feelings, the romantic feelings were there,
yeah.
but I think it takes a lot more than just love for a healthy relationship. And that's also
Right.
debatable too. Trust is a big part of it. Also, just like
Yeah.
emotional maturity and
Mm, yeah.
there's so much that goes into a healthy relation. Time management is also some. It's like it's a
Right.
practical thing, but time management
Absolutely.
is a thing. If you can't manage to find time together, what's the point of trying anything?
100%. Yeah.
So there's just so many different factors that go into it. But to answer your question, it's not
Mm,
that I'm necessarily doubting the love because I feel like, okay, we're loving each other as best as we can,
mm,
but it's still ultimately not as healthy as it should be, kind of thing.
right. It's an experience that you don't want to drag out either. If you know that, yeah, it's like when you know, you know.
But what do you think? I mean,
Mm.
what do you think about like what does love mean to you in relationships?
I think so. I'll admit, like, I'm hella romantic. I love romance. I love experiencing the fun. I love experiencing the highs and lows. And sometimes I can be very dramatic. It's in my nature. It's who I am. I'm an artist. But also at the same time, like in the practical sense, I don't like to, when it comes to like, if I choose to, like, I'm in a relationship now and it had been after like, like I had dated a lot of people. I had been, I've had very, very, close, intimate encounters with people that, it seemed like on paper it would be, yo, we could be great together. But it's like, it's almost like an instinctual thing for me. But also when it comes down to it, like loving somebody is a commitment. Like if I get to a place like, okay, cool, I spent enough time with you, I know you well enough, and also like right off the bat, I also love the way that our dynamic is. I want to see if I can cultivate something here. I want to commit to this. It is a commitment. I will like for me, I have the expectation I hold for myself more so. Like, I have to communicate well. I have to, you know, cultivate trust. I have to really make sure that we are growing in a direction where it's something that can last like a very long time, like, and also like if things do go south, like I'm very, very much so like I take responsibility for myself and also my actions type of guy. Like if something goes south, if it's not because of the actions of like, what I personally did, but the relationship it just was set for this amount of time. Yeah, it's gonna be heartbreaking, but it's like I can't force something to grow if it's done. Like
Mhm.
we can't force ourselves to get taller anymore, no matter how much taller we want to get. At some point at, 17, 18, whatever scientific age it is, we stop growing. And yeah, but I feel like, obviously love is a little bit different. We're not organs that have a time period where we stop growing. Like with love is a choice, love is a commitment. And if you choose to commit, if you choose to do the things that can help the relationship grow, then, that's what I aim to do at least. And like, I think most times relationships kind of fall, especially, well, I feel like love can be a more difficult journey if you make decisions that harm your integrity. If you have impeachable character, it's like, it's very hard to make something blossom because trust is at stake. And if there's no trust there, it's like I guess it's up to the person. I don't want to ever be like, oh, you're a weak person because you chose to stick with someone. It's like, no, there's a laundry list of reasons why they are going through it. And also sometimes there's a lesson behind it that we can only sit there and observe from the outside. But whatever it is that someone's path is, it's like that's their journey, that's their story. We can't alter it, we can't force it, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, love's a choice to commit. That's my
Great.
take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a very clear perspective. Like you equate at least romantic love. Is it
Mm.
safe to say you equate romantic love with commitment? So it's more of
Oh
a
yeah.
do you think love, like romantic love, is more of a choice as opposed to something you have no control over? It's a hard question.
Do I think romantic love is a choice rather than something I have no control over? I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a really weird, obtuse kind of cat, but I think you have control over everything. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because your emotions are one thing, but don't be fooled. You know, like look at your experiences, look at your patterns, look at your life. Like, if you want, I mean, if we were to look at the world, we could see what's going on just by looking to the history, right? I mean, look, take stock of yourself. You can look at the choices you've made in the past, look at where you needed to grow, look at, because a lot of times people are just the same person they were with their ex with the new person, and they're just like carrying on the same habits. And this person just has a higher level of tolerance that they're willing to give to this other person than the person before them, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, because how everyone's, well, not everyone, how a lot of people say, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I'm looking for. Then why do you have like 15,000 failed relationships, bro? Like, you're so smart. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I think we have a lot more in control than we realize because if you express yourself in a way to someone that you want to pursue, whether it's man, female, or um, in between. Man, sorry, respectfully, what is a proper? But like, no matter who you are, like
Mhm.
you have a lot more in control than you realize. But also, like their decision is their decision, and you can't control somebody else, but you can control yourself.
Mhm.
But I think bonds can form, like kind of like what you said. If depending on what your metrics of values are, like if there's a bond there that just like locks in, it's just like it's something really, really beautiful and you want to cultivate that, that's a choice that's going to be made mutually. And it's like, I don't know, I speak as from myself, right? Like when I know that I want to pursue someone, like that other person's going to know. It's like an instinctual thing, Whereas, like what you said earlier, like, all the other things about, time and, communication, all these other things. Like I think of myself as someone that communicates pretty well. But
Mhm.
whenever I've dated people in the past where I was just not that interested, I noticed that they weren't a priority in terms of how often I want to see them. Like I
Mhm.
valued my own time spending it by myself, twiddling my thumb, looking up at the ceiling more so than wanting to see them. Truth
That's
be told,
probably
it is
not
what
a
it
good
is.
sign. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess I could come kick it with you real quick. Cool. Yeah, we can do dinner, we can have a great time. Like, but do you think I feel something for you? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
You're absolutely beautiful. You are a great time, but that's not it for me, you know? Like, yeah, when you know, but also like, I don't know. I don't think you should let your feelings dictate everything. Like, you should let your experiences be a good signifier of what you should do and what you should not do. But also don't be blindsided. Like not all good things, like experiences can be great, but also look at the person. Like don't ignore the red flags. Like address them early on. Actually, like talk about it. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, you didn't tip our server. Like, what's up with that? Whatever the case may be. I think it's
Hmm.
important to have conversations early on. So then, like, if you're gonna get through the hard parts, like get through that in the beginning, maybe. Get as much of it done at the beginning. It sounds really weird, but like it's a tough journey. But like get as much as you can in the beginning. So then, like later on, you know, you guys have a better understanding of each other.
Yeah.
you know, like do the hard stuff first.
Would you agree that when it comes to making choice. So we've sort of talked about how love is more of a choice and something you can control. Um,
Mm.
would you agree that when it comes to making that choice about who you're going to be in a relationship with, who you're going to stay in a relationship with, would you agree that it should be a logical decision? Like you should include logic in that decision?
Mm.
Or because
Yeah,
you
I
said
think it,
something a minute ago that like yeah, your emotions are one thing, but you also have to. So do you think it's like a balance of like honoring your emotions but also not abandoning logic?
right. I mean, definitely acknowledge how they make you feel. Like,
Mhm.
are you even attracted to these cats? You know what I'm saying? Like, bruh, like,
Mhm.
if the reason why you want to be in a relationship is for whatever reason, but like, don't fool yourself. Like, be honest with yourself first.
Yeah,
Like,
that's key.
emotions are very important. Those are there that shows interest and attraction. But what about everything else? You know, like, I know that like life can sometimes happen, and if I think you should signify it by everything, but also like really look at effort. Effort's like the key thing there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a willingness to communicate and talk about the tough things, you know, like logic should not be ignored. Logic should definitely be applied, but also like be observant. Like don't be bamboozled later on thinking like, oh well, they said they're gonna do all this and they just like, yeah, it's not yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
don't know if I answered your question, but like, does that
No,
make sense?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think the healthiest relationships are approached with honoring your emotions, expressing your emotions, but also logically make sense on paper. I think if you can find a balance between logic and emotion, those are typically the
Right.
healthiest relationships. But that's just
Right.
me. I love that there's so many different interpretations of love out there. And I think what I was getting at earlier is that the term love, I think, is kind of a relative term. I don't think
Mm,
there's a right or wrong way to necessarily love someone. I don't think love is an objective concept. I think it's very subjective. And I
mm,
think if you're going to enter a relationship, you just need to communicate about what love means to you in a way
yeah.
that isn't you can communicate with actions and with words, right?
Yeah.
So, but relationships are hard nowadays. What do you think the story that we just read? Do you
Mm,
think that author is saying something about love? What do you think their interpretation of love is? Do you have any thoughts
mm.
about that based on the story we just read?
What I think the author's interpretation of love is. I
Do you
think,
think yeah, the author's saying anything? Do you think that this story reveals anything about the author's perspective on love?
yeah, I mean, it's like, number one, you can't change someone. That's ultimately on them. Like the fact that, because her emotions were strong enough to give this guy the light of day, to give him anything. Sorry, the time of day, not the light of day. And, like, I think that's, I think she's saying, to put it simply, like, you know, not, people are not going to change. I think that's what maybe she feels.
Yeah.
You know, that's obviously counter to what I personally think. But obviously, like, you know, her experiences, her time on this planet, you know, whatever the case may be, it led her to write a story that is very much so true because there are a lot of people that are not willing to change. And I think that's kind of a sad thing too, you know, because like, how are you not willing to grow? How are you not willing to experience something different outside of the brackets of your own mind that you think you are limited to, you know?
Right.
Especially yourself. Like if you think that you're right all the time and you know everyone else is doing you wrong, you're probably a miserable person to be around. I mean, clearly this character, homegirl, was just fed up. She was like, dude, like you're so self-absorbed. All you do is talk about yourself. All that you want to talk about is your experiences and how you saw things, yada yada yada. And literally you got like three words in during that entire story, you
Yeah.
know? Like that's a perfect example of what her experience is that
Mhm.
entire time, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's what uh Catherine, the author, was trying to convey here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's trying to make the point that sometimes people don't change. But
Yeah.
I don't know if she feels that nobody can ever change. I do
Mm,
wonder if I do wonder though if it takes a new relationship to teach someone how to change. You know, I wonder if she's saying that
mm,
like if you've had a relationship with someone and it ran its course, chances are you two are going to have that same vibe. You're going to repeat those same patterns because it's
yeah.
just you, person A and person B. But I
Right.
wonder if she's suggesting subtly that maybe if person B found person C, maybe their relationship dynamic might cultivate a little more change and a little more growth. Because
Mm,
I love relationships that do kind of challenge me to an extent, and I
yeah.
love relationships that make me want to change for the better.
Right.
I think the healthiest relationships, like I help bring out the best in that person helps bring out the best in me.
Mm,
And I love to change and to grow and to evolve.
right.
So, and I always look at any relationship in the past as not a waste of time. As long as I've learned something from it, or as long as the other person has learned something, it
Right.
wasn't a waste of time if it was a learning experience. Even if you just learned about what your boundaries are, what your preferences are, even if you just learn like, okay, this is what I can and cannot tolerate. Or
Right.
even if you just learn how to communicate more effectively or how to manage your time better, or as long as there's a lesson somewhere for someone, it's not a waste of
Right.
time. But
Mm,
yeah, I think her perspective is it's kind of funny how she writes this like bitter story. And I do feel like it's very relatable for a lot of people because I'm sure
right.
everyone, you know, if you're like over 30, you've probably been in a relationship with someone and then you see them again and then you realize they're exactly the same, you know.
Right. Yeah,
So
literally.
sometimes people don't change. And you brought up a good point earlier that I think people have to want to change in order to change. If you don't want to
100%.
change, you're definitely not going to.
No, not at all. I mean, like what you mentioned earlier, like, you like to be in relationships where you're challenged and, you do get better at certain things that you weren't out at before. And like that process is not easy. Like it sounds great. Yeah, I'm in a relationship where I'm, constantly challenged. I probably am frustrated because what I'm trying to convey is not being registered. We don't understand each other well, but the fact that you guys are trying and like those things, like, yeah, you like it because also you're changing now as a person. Because like those same skills and those same attributes are not just going to be in that relationship. It's going to carry over to your friendships, to your business relationships, to everything, and also your craft, like as an actor.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be able to understand certain things off a script and a story a lot better because of the way someone communicates and the way that people react. Like, yeah, I think that's a beautiful aspect of growth and
Yeah.
being challenged in relationships because like, but also those are the very things that I think people don't want. People can instantly throw a lot of modern day buzzwords like toxic
Oh,
or,
yeah.
like, oh, that's so toxic. Why are you expressing this? Like, oh, but I want to do better, you know?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, but no, I think that's really dope that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I feel like the best relationships do kind of change and evolve over time. And it depends on your age when you meet the person, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
we're talking about, okay, what is love? Do you think that love, like romantic love, do you think it's only like do you believe in soulmates? Do you think that that you can only find true love with one person? Or do you feel
Mm.
like you can find love with many different people? What do you think?
I think that truly comes down to the person. Like if you were to ask me, like I've had interactions with several beautiful souls, incredible human beings, but were they my person? No, absolutely
Hmm.
not. I've had very, very deep, like relationships with people in my past too. And at some points, it's like during those relationships, I thought, wow, like this is my last stop right here. We're about
Yeah.
to, this is eternal, like something super beautiful.
Mm.
But, I was also a lot more younger, a lot more naive, a lot like less experienced. And also my standards were not nearly what they are now.
Hmm.
So I think my perspective has changed as I grew and also the experience I've had because like I've had my share of heartbreak too. I know exactly what I don't want. And it's a lot of those things that at one point I did want.
Hmm.
For me, like if all things go well, like if I continue as I am, one thing that has to stay constant for me is I do believe like, when it comes to love for me as Justin David, I would only want to have one person. If I get married, if I cross that milestone in my life, like I would only want that with one person. Now, soulmates, uh, I think you can have soulmates, but it does not have to be romantic. Like there are people in my life that are from different parts of the world, but I'm like, bro, my soul has some kind of connection to you, and we just vibe. We
Hmm.
just have this like unexplainable love and chemistry, and just like it's so wholesome and real.
Hmm.
Like in the romantic sense, like, yeah, you know, there could be a soulmate there, but I don't think it's limited to just that.
Yeah.
And I think only time can tell in the romantic sense, if I'm being perfectly honest. But everything else, like, yeah. And like, I think there is also a spiritual element to it too. Like,
Yeah.
not in the woo-woo way, like, not, sorry, respectfully, like, not in the, you know, like a Virgo is going to get with a Scorpio and this is a match made in heaven. Like, no, that's cute. Like,
So
that's,
you don't believe in the
that's,
zodiac stuff?
I think it's really cool and it's an awesome way to storytell. And, sometimes you can make someone believe something that can motivate them to make those things happen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, because I'm not gonna lie, there was a point in my life when I was like, yo, I need to get my reading done right now. I need to go and see what's happening for the Virgos out here. I'm a Virgo. And like, like look at the compatibility charts, like I definitely dove into that. I know my
So
moon,
you
my
really
rising, my
did.
sun.
You went all in to like the
I went all in, yeah. I mean, like when you're dating and people start asking you about that, you're just like, I don't know, September. Okay, well, my moon was in the 45th degree textile. I'm just like, I don't even know what I just said there, but I'm hearing all that. But like, I don't think, I think if you have that kind of belief system, if it works for you, great. But for me personally, I felt like I was limiting myself if I were to follow that type of belief system, like, because there are experiences I've had with people that are not compatible sign, but we've had the greatest time known to mankind. And like, yeah, it's a good point of reference to have if you need to build trust in yourself. But do I think it is the end all be all? Probably not. Like learn to trust yourself outside of um, things that other people write down because of their self-proclaimed like futuristic psychic knowledge. I don't know, but yeah, I
I
think
hear
it's super
you.
dope though. Like I respect it. I truly do respect it.
Yeah, I'll share with you my input as soon as I get the camera f focused. It's all blurry all of a sudden. Ooh. Sometimes it'll like start getting really like, do you see me all blurry or is that just me?
No, it is blurry.
Like, how did I get so blurry? That's so weird. The camera just likes you. They're like, we've had enough of her.
No, 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 no. I mean, like, are you able to turn your camera off and on?
No, sometimes this just happens, but usually if I just like get really close and then I slowly back away, it'll refocus. But it's still blurring. Why is it all blurry all of a sudden? That's so weird.
Do you,
I
what
think
kind of
it's because
camera are you using?
I picked up my water too. Oh, there we go. It's starting to focus again. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. We're back at it
Um,
again.
so I appreciate what you said about the zodiac stuff. I think the zodiac
Mm,
stuff is fun to think about because it relates to the gravitational pull of the moon. And
Yeah,
we're 75% water, I think, and the ocean tides are affected by the moon. So, it makes sense. Like maybe we're affected by the gravitational pull of the moon if we're born at a certain time when there's a certain gravitational pull. It makes sense. I can follow the philosophy of the
right.
zodiac, but I take it with a grain of salt. I think it's fun to think about, but I wouldn't live my life based on it. So,
100%. Like what you said was interesting, like the 75% water and gravitational pull, like all those things affect the way that we feel and the way that we think. But also if you have enough self-awareness and self-control, you can kind of determine those things regardless of how you feel, you know?
mhm.
It's like, when you're like fasting or when you're hangry, but it's like you just have to get through it. And eventually you
Yes.
just like, I'm gonna deal with the fact that I'm angry as hell and I'm
Mhm.
hungry. I would love some fries and some Parmesan pizza, Parmesan. Anyway, some really amazing food. But it's like I'm gonna force myself to just be in a good mood, even though I'm absolutely famished. It's like that's why when it comes to like a lot of the zodiac stuff, like I respect it, but I just feel like sometimes people, I don't know. It's a belief system, so I'm not trying to diss it or anything, but dare to step outside of your own knowledge, you know?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting how you keep talking about how you do have, what I'm hearing is that you feel that you do have more control over your emotions than some people give themselves credit for. I
Mm,
wonder if that has anything to do with like your training as an actor, because, like as an actor, you practice the art of controlling your emotions, of
mm,
controlling your mindset, of changing your mindset, consciously controlling your thoughts, consciously controlling your feelings. So, because I practice that art form too, I like to think I have a lot of self-control when it comes to, who my emotions and how
yeah.
I respond to things. So is that what I'm getting from you? Like you feel like people think they have less control than they actually have over their personality.
I, I think, yeah, I think people have a lot more control over themselves than, because I think if you're just a very reactive person, it's like you're not, like personally for me, I would never want to bring you around a lot. I would probably see you like on a few occasions. But like for me personally, like how do I put this? Like for me personally, I want to be a lot more in control of my emotions because for a long time, circumstantially, my life was just not the most ideal.
Yeah.
Like I was an extremely anxious, depressed, angry, like just a lot of I was just like I was a chaotic dude for a while in my life, like to put it simply.
Hmm.
And I just kind of got tired of it. So I dove into understanding like myself. I wanted to do a lot of self work. I wanted to really transform my life. I wanted to transform myself as a person. Like, of course, the ghost of me is still there, but he doesn't control me, you know?
Hmm.
Like, I control myself. I will always do my best to even like when it comes to like vices, like if I consume alcohol or whatever, like, like I have my limits. Like,
Hmm.
I am very conscious of it. I try to get better at everything as I grow, because I mean, as someone that used to be extremely reactive, like I love that I can utilize that in the craft for
Hmm.
sure. But it's truly for the betterment of my life and also the people I'm around. And also like I kind of want to help people with it too. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty dope to be able to like have enough, not have enough, have a certain level of understanding of myself that I can pass it along to someone else who may be dealing with the same thing and
Yeah.
help them kind of conquer themselves,
That's
because
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
I uh I am curious now,
Mm,
because you bring up how you've had some changes, some growth, and you've made some conscious choices to change how you respond emotionally, and you've made some changes about yourself, right? So
mm,
what I'm wondering is, so for me personally, when I was in high school, I think I'm very different than when I was in high school. I think I'm
yeah.
very different than how I was 10 years ago.
Mm,
even like 5, 7 years ago. But my question to you is, do you ever run into people who knew like that former version of you
mm,
who don't trust it or who don't accept it or who don't talk to you or who don't know how to cope with like the new version? Like do people from your
mm,
past like still enter your life and they don't know how to cope or they don't know how to accept like the newer
mm.
version of yourself?
Yeah. And it's like, it's interesting because like I used to be like a significantly heavier kid growing up. Like I was 100 pounds overweight at one point and I dropped the weight. And then that's when things started to, catapult, well, not catapult, the domino effect of, self work and mental like transformation kind of happened. But like in terms of like people from my past, mainly the only people that I've ever gotten grief from was family. And because it's just a lot more, I don't know, I guess sometimes when it comes to family, they get salty about the fact that, they've stayed the same and someone that's in front of them is not,
Hmm.
put it simply,
Yeah.
like it's a matter of jealousy or self inadequacy, the ideas that you have about yourself because you've seen someone else doing better. But it's like, bro, like I was suffering for a long time
Yeah.
and like the noise gets very, very loud. Me doing this for myself is also for you, you know, like, and it's not impossible. Like if I can literally, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Hmm.
Even in our field of work, like, we've crossed a lot of milestones that some people just do not have the patience or can even fathom themselves doing. It's like, bro, if we can do it, you can do it too. You just have to be
Hmm.
willing. Like literally,
Yeah.
that's just the name of the game. It's a like one of my I played Dungeons and Dragons in 2020, and one of our campaigns was called it's called a test of the willing, and that's literally what life is. Life is
Yeah.
literally just the test of the willing in
Hmm.
every aspect. So if you want something, you know, mess around and find out. You might get it. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting this concept of how we change and like different chapters of our lives.
Mm,
Um, So like I still have friends that I associate with from high school, but we
yeah.
only hang out like we all have we live in different places now. We
Mm,
work in different professions and we can only really manage time to see each other once or twice a year, like around the holidays or someone's like
right.
milestone birthday or something. But I will say it feels like when I reunite with them, they talk to me as though I'm like the same person
Mm.
that I was in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because
Right.
they haven't been around me a lot since then, right? So
Yeah.
their version of me is basically the same. And so when I start like behaving a little differently or expressing myself differently, I can
Yeah.
sense that it makes them uncomfortable because it's like
Right.
they don't know how to relate to this other version of me because they only
Right.
know that version of me in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To no fault
100%.
of their own, but I can sense when they're like surprised by the way I feel like I've changed in just the way I express myself and also my
Yeah.
confidence level, right? In high
Mm.
school, I had like no confidence, right? But now that
Really?
I'm older
Mm.
and I've had life experiences, I'm quite
Mm.
confident when it comes to many subjects, not
Yeah.
everything in life. Like I'm still learning a lot about
Mm.
but when it comes to certain subject matters, I'm
Mm.
quite confident. Not
Right.
arrogant, but confident. There's a difference between
Yeah.
arrogance and
100%.
confidence. So I
Yeah.
think when I express myself with a level of confidence that I didn't have in high school, I can sense that they're a little like, huh. It takes them a second to adjust to this new version. I feel like
Right.
family can be that way too, because family knew all the versions of yourself,
Yeah.
right? Your family, if you're someone who like has a steady kind of, you see your family on a semi-regular basis, they know
Mm.
you how you were when you were a kid, they knew you in your teenage phase, they knew you in your adult phase, and then there's
Right.
all these different phases we might encounter throughout different like decades or yeah, every five
Right.
years we might evolve.
Yeah.
Every 10 years our cells completely regenerate. Every 10
Yeah.
years our cells complete. So we are not the same like scientifically as we were 10 years ago. So
Right.
I love to believe in this concept of, yes, of course you can change if you want to. Where there's a will, there's a way. But it is interesting in how people around you that have known you at the various chapters in your life respond to
Mm,
that change. Some people respond to it and welcome it and embrace
right.
it, but other people, it's like they know they only want to see you in a different in that former version.
Right.
It's like this new version isn't they can't relate. Does that make
Right.
sense? Does that happen to you?
Oh, 1,000,000%. That makes perfect sense because it's like I don't think it's coming from like a bad place, but I think it I don't think it's coming from a place of ill intent, but it's almost as if like they feel bad about themselves, you know? Like they see you doing the thing that you did. They see you losing the weight. They see you getting the job. They see you with the new boot. They see you little they just like they see the highlight reel version of yourself because they haven't had a catch up with you in a long time. So it's easy to judge you for where you are right now and who they think you are. And then at the same time, it's like, man, like I liked you a lot better when you were quieter and didn't have much to say and didn't your opinions weren't so strong and you didn't accomplish as much and you didn't have as much experience. You were a lot easier to tolerate because I was him. I was that before you. And now I feel like you took that away from me. Or now I just feel like, I can't be around you because you're whoever this is makes me feel small.
Hmm.
And I don't want to let you know that I feel small. So let me just make you feel small. Let me just project how I feel about myself at you. That's what I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes it is. Or it's just literally like, man, like I still see you as who you were. I still see you as a kid that you were, but
Hmm.
it's kind of crazy to get to know who you are now, you
I
know?
feel like family can be that way sometimes too. Like family,
Right, right.
siblings, they see you as like how they knew you growing up because they spent more time with you when you were younger.
Right.
Family might not have spent a lot of time with this new version of you. And
Right.
so the way that they relate is like bringing up memories instead of talking about the present. It's almost like they have to get
Mm,
to know you again and who you've become.
right.
But going back to this concept of love,
Mm,
do you feel like there's like a special type of love that can love someone through all the various types of chapters and growth spurts? And do you feel that healthy relationships, loving relationships, do you feel that you can grow, you can keep growing together?
mm,
Um, or do you feel like once you're in a steady relationship, do you think that it's more likely to just stop growing? Like, do you ever think that a relationship can stagnate your growth? I guess is what I'm getting at.
mm. I feel like if you feel like a relationship can stagnate your growth, then that time period you have with that person is probably up.
Hmm.
Because if you have fears about, if you're conflicted on what you want selfishly versus, and you feel like you need to sacrifice the relationship for that, then it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, like, especially in our industry, it's like, that's a very, very common thing, you know, like, do I want to continue to pursue my passions and to live the life that I have been? Or do I go and make a sacrifice to continue this relationship that I have with somebody and give up my passion,
Mhm.
Like those are conversations that you need to have with that person.
Yeah.
But when it comes to love, like I don't know, the way I don't toss love around like that, but to people I love, I toss around all the damn time. I'm just like, yo, I freaking love you, bro. Or I freaking love you, girl. Like they know that I love, but I don't just like toss it around like that. Because like for me, love is truly unconditional.
Mm.
Like it's an unconditional commitment to knowing that I will support you, I will accept you, I will also be honest with you. And if I can help you out when I can or in any way I can, I will. Like you have all of me and I hope I can have all of you. Like even the people in my life that have hurt me deeply, but that's a part of love. Like and this is not in a religious way or anything, because like, I think the way that I perceive love the same way God loves. God loves unconditionally, but He gave me free will. So I can choose who I love. I ain't gotta love everybody, you know, in that way. I don't have to love everybody unconditionally in that way. I could have distances. I could have certain boundaries placed for certain people. And actually, there's boundaries for everybody, but there is certain reservations that I have when it comes to unconditional love, because I don't think we are capable of loving every single person unconditionally on a deep, intimate level and bring them into our lives. We can show love and kindness, not nice. We can be kind to people, but I don't think we have the capacity to love like God, the creator, the universe,
Yeah.
whatever your preference is.
Hmm.
That's what I think love is.
So when you tell someone you're in a relationship with, you love them, you mean that
Mm,
you love them unconditionally and you're with commitment, right? That's
mm.
kind of your version. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah. It's like,
Unconditional. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like the concept of unconditional love is a really interesting concept to talk about
Mm,
because, and I like that you brought up, you know, the idea that God loves us unconditionally, right? That's
right.
a notion that a lot of people agree with and a lot of people disagree. But when it comes to conditions, I feel like this just to poke at you. So
Yeah, yeah.
say like you tell you're in a relationship, you tell the person you love them and you feel like this is like gonna last a long time. What if
Mm,
they change or what if they reveal something that makes you look at them differently? Like, what if they reveal that they've been lying to you or cheating on you? What if they reveal
mm,
that they have this like really destructive habit? Like, or what if they reveal um, that they're not really who you thought they were? Do you think that
mm.
you would still love them unconditionally? It's a
Yeah.
hard question, but
I know
what
it
if
sounds
they,
crazy, but like,
yeah,
it sounds crazy. I'm sorry, will you go ahead?
go ahead, go ahead. No,
It sounds crazy, but if I can love someone unconditionally, but I don't have to be with them.
I got you.
You know, I,
Okay.
I don't have to like, I don't have to be around them because they're just gonna constantly make me feel like shit. Sorry, make me. Are we allowed to curse on this or
Yeah, you can.
no? Oh, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, if like, but if say that, I'm in a relationship and I love them unconditionally, but they changed or they did something that tarnishes their integrity or basically did the things that could break a relationship that would make me want to break up with them. It's like I love you for all that you are, but like I can't be with you. You know,
Got it. Okay.
you're not going to be happy. You have to live like if you have to lie to me, you are essentially living it. You have an aspect of your life that's a lie,
Yeah.
and I don't like being lied to, and I don't want someone to become a dishonest person. Because that behavior is going to spill into a lot of other things. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's
So you're
like
saying that the love may never go away, but that doesn't mean you have to be with them. You can love someone unconditionally without being in a committed relationship. Is that what you're saying?
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Interesting.
I've had people like literally that have had thrones on my heart that have literally like just made me just absolutely devastated, like brought me to my knees.
Mm-hmm.
But like they were like a very, 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 they were a part of my life for a long time. And like, yeah, there was good times and all the fluffy stuff, but like the journey that I had with them contributed to becoming the man that I am today. And I know it's a very corny thing, like, oh, I just don't regret the lessons there, but like truly, like I think life is not about every destination that you get to. It's literally the in-between process. Like
Yeah.
I gained so much knowledge and wisdom and
Mm-hmm.
like know-how from those experiences. And I'm someone that is obsessed with like finding answers to things and just obsessed with my own curiosity. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can't beat that.
That's what a philosopher is. It's the love of wisdom, the love of knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, Before we wrap this up, I'd love to just kind of read these few quotes and kind of talk about
Mm.
what we think about them.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
read one and then you read one. You want to do it that way?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Let's see.
this is one by Maya Angelou. Love is an endless act of forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to action and freedom. What
Mm.
do you think?
Okay, so my idea of forgiveness is not, it's that age old saying, it's not for the other person or people, whatever it is. It's truly for yourself
Mm,
to forgive, to let go of, to like whatever anger or feeling that you have that has been brought by somebody else or something else, letting it go and not attaching them to that thought, but like to really just be like, all right, we're good,
yeah.
you know? Easier said than done for sure. It's like a mental catastrophe happened there. But like it's it's for you, and it's truly I think it is the key to really unlocking the next steps that you do. Okay, I mean, like, think about it this way: like if you're mad at yourself for an audition that you feel that you tank, but like, well, you can sit there and ruminate over that and give up your acting career for it. It's like, no,
hmm
you're gonna tighten up and do better and forgive yourself because understand it's a learning process. You
hmm
know, I
So
think
do you,
forgiveness is learning.
you're right. Yeah. So do you agree with her quote?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I I like the perspective
Mm,
because everyone is flawed, including ourselves.
yeah.
Nobody's perfect. So to love someone must mean that there's going to be forgiveness involved. We have to be
Yeah.
able to forgive each other for our mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes, everyone's going to have flaws. We have to be able to forgive
Mm,
those mistakes if we love them, right? If we choose love. Same thing with ourselves. If we're trying to access this sense of self-love, we need to forgive ourselves in order
right.
to love ourselves.
Right.
Um, However, I feel like it's good to have grace and compassion, but I don't know if we can reduce love to just forgiveness. Um,
Hmm.
but it seems like an oversimplification to me. Because I also tend to think that love is a relative term. So for me
Yeah.
to say that, yes, love just means forgiveness, I think
Yeah.
there might be more to it than that, but
$1,000%. Yeah.
I do love the idea of looking at love that way. I think it's a
Yeah.
beautiful way of looking at love. Uh, to
Mm,
love someone is to forgive them. And just like you said, forgiveness isn't always just for the other person. Holding resentment in your heart is not healthy. So it's just as
yeah.
much for you as for the other person.
Right. Like it's like personally for me, like it took me a long, long, long time to understand what forgiveness truly is. Like I'm not excusing certain behaviors, but I can't let it affect me to a point where it's my resentment and my anger and my sadness is being almost like it just shows up,
Mhm.
and also like you said, nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. People are not intending to do things to make you cause pain, make you feel pain, but it's like, you know, maybe they just don't have enough awareness in themselves that their actions did that.
Yeah.
But it's like, or sometimes they do and they're just, I'm sorry, but if they're just a piece of shit, then you gotta let them go. It is, we forgive them, but just know that they're stupid. But yeah, it's no, forgiveness is like you said, it's not the word forgive sounds a lot, it just sounds a lot easier than what it truly is. Forgiveness in itself is a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just because you forgive someone, that doesn't mean what they did is acceptable. That doesn't mean what they
No.
did is right.
Right.
But you're forgiving them by letting them not have power over you. Like if I feel
Exactly.
wronged by someone, I can forgive them so I don't have to hold that resentment in my heart because then they have
Exactly.
that emotional power over me.
Mm.
So I think that yes, forgiveness has a lot to do with love. I don't know if they're necessarily
Mhm.
synonymous. What do you think
Right.
of this quote? Ever has it been that love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation?
What do you think?
Kahlil, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Gibram?
Let's go with that because I don't
Okay.
know. What do I think it means?
Well, do you like it? Do you agree with it?
Yes, because I don't know, like I apply a mean I apply I can apply what the message that that quote has when it comes to when I'm reminiscing about certain people or memories and stuff like that. But like when it comes to you ever think about a friend that you had years ago out of the blue, the memories that you guys shared, the memories, the times you guys had, the things that you guys used to talk about, um, the depth of your guys' bond, you know? And do you think about how infrequent that is now, or how much you crave some kind of connection like that again, you know? And you
Yeah.
realize wow, I love this cat, you know? I
Hmm.
loved this person. Like you never know you don't know what you have until it's gone,
Yeah,
or
to
what you
me,
had.
exactly. To me, that's what this quote reminds you of. You don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
Or the other quote, absence makes the heart grow fonder. However,
Mm,
some people like to joke, absence makes the heart grow fonder of someone else. So I
yeah.
feel like oftentimes, especially in romantic relationships, it's easy to feel smothered if you spend too much time together and you start
Right.
losing your individuality, your sense of self outside of that person. I
Yeah.
struggle with this a lot in relationships, like the need to love and be loved, and
Yeah.
also the need to feel independent in my own
Mm,
right, having my own sense of self outside of that person, right? So
yeah.
I
Yeah.
tend
Yeah.
to, those are two conflicting needs that are often um, at war with each other. However, the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder. I definitely think there's some truth to that. And I think there's some truth to this quote because it's easy to take someone for granted if they're readily available. If they're always there, it's
Yeah.
easy to take them for granted. But if you have a little
Right.
separation, then you start to realize what it's like without them, what your life would be like without them. You start to realize how much they brought to your life. And so it sort of
Right.
enhances your love. So I think that's what this quote is
Yeah.
saying. Ever has it been that love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation?
Right.
So
I'm glad
it's,
that you mentioned the smothering part because I'm not gonna lie to you, I love to just yo, let's hang out all the time. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. But learning to I had to diagnose that in myself at one point. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I like this? I am so freaking weird. Let's figure this out. It's yeah, no, knowing to create space and also checking yourself as to why you feel the need to be like that is also very important as well,
yeah.
But yeah,
I think
no,
there's a big difference between love and codependency.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think about this quote by Alfred Lord Tennyson? It
Mm.
is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
I think it's what okay, I love that quote in the sense of it's really cool to self-soothe yourself after something really, really heartbreaking or something that just did not last and just kind of what we were talking about earlier, embark on the journey and what it meant to us. But I can't say that applies to every relationship or every dynamic that ever ended. You know what I'm saying? Because there are certain, I know I might be contradicting myself over here, but not every dynamic where I love someone, maybe out of my own stupidity, I probably could have dodged that journey. I could have totally gone on a different side quest that could have experienced that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I think that quote is very, very powerful when it's applied in its own correct way. But I don't think every journey where you have love involved and there's heartbreak associated with it is necessarily a good thing, you
I
know?
agree. I think that this quote applies in many relationships, but not all relationships. Because if
Right.
you're in like an abusive relationship, if you're in a relationship that is so traumatic that you
Yeah.
need therapy afterwards, that it really can hinder other relationships.
Yeah.
And it takes so much time to heal from. I just
Mm,
don't know if that relationship it was better to love and law. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
right.
if it applies in every relationship, but I definitely think it applies in a
Right.
lot. So I agree.
Right. Because like there are certain, I think a lot of people that experience like really, really nasty outcomes in relationships, they end up going to therapy and doing a lot of these things, but it's like some people just don't recover, you
Yeah.
know?
Or it
Like,
takes a long time to recover. And
right.
and then they carry that baggage with them in future relationships. So I like to
I think
think of
that is
it.
a choice too, though,
Yes, I
you
agree.
know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think if somebody has learned a lesson from the relationship, it's not a waste of time. So,
Right.
but if you didn't really learn anything and if it was just like traumatic, I don't know if maybe you could have done without it. I don't know if this quote would
Right.
apply. So,
Right. Well, 100% like, sorry, I know that we're trying to wrap this up, but like, like when I was like heavily dating, like I would meet some people that would basically, I almost felt like I was being punished for the men that they did in the past. So like the way that they would speak to me, the way that they would react to me, the way that like, certain situations would go, I'm like, bro, why are you mad at me? Like, why are you talking to me like this? Like I'm just trying to get to know you, you know? It's sad,
yeah,
but also at the same time, it's like, I feel like you have to make the choice to get better, truly,
yes,
and not blame, not sit there and blame.
yeah. It's really hard to if you're a type of if you're a person who's been in relationships that have just been one disappointment after the next after the next after the
Yeah,
next, it's really hard to have a fresh clean slate to start over with an optimistic attitude. It's really hard if people have betrayed you a lot. It's really hard to trust someone. But I feel like
right,
if you don't take that risk, you're not giving that person the benefit of the doubt. It's not really fair to them. It's not really fair to yourself because that sets
right,
the stage for like an unhealthy relationship. If you go into it assuming you're going to have the same pattern, then you could actually subconsciously make that happen. But if you go into it
right,
with the hope that, okay, so maybe this time will be different, and if you hang on to that hope, then
right,
that there's at least the possibility that it might be different. But if you're
right,
just going into it with like, oh, I bet this guy's like all the others, so I'm just going to treat him like he's like all the others, that's not fair,
right.
guy. That's not fair
I mean,
to.
same thing happens with girls too. Like, like you guys, like women experience guys that literally just speak to them and treat them like just just trash because whoever broke their heart before you is like, it's like, yeah, well, they all do this. And it's like, bro, tighten up and get some help. Like, understand.
Yeah.
It's always great that people are willing to get themselves out there again and give love another shot for sure. But also, like, check yourself because you're
Yeah.
literally wrecking yourself. You know what I'm
Right. Yeah. I
saying?
feel like if you were in a toxic relationship, it's your responsibility to heal before you enter another one. To give that other
Right.
relationship a really fair chance, you can't be projecting the past onto them, you know?
100%.
It's
Yeah.
not really fair. So,
Right.
this was such a fun, interesting discussion. Is there anything else
Right.
you'd like to share before we close?
No, that was dope. Really appreciate you having me and actually having this conversation. I love like talking about stuff like this. So it was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean there are other songs and other pieces we could read and talk about, but I feel like we had a
Or
great time just talking about love and what it all means. I still kind of have an open mind about love. Like I'm willing for someone to change my mind about it.
yeah. No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for all the love that I have in my life. I have a lot of love. So I feel like these conversations are useful to listen to because it might offer some new insight
Right.
into how we can love each other better and how we can love ourselves better. So I hope if you're listening at home, this was beneficial to listen to. And if you have any thoughts, if you agree with us, disagree with us, comment below. Let us know. I love to keep the conversation going. And throughout the whole month of February, I'm going to be reading love poems, songs, quotes, and just dissecting like the philosophy of love. So stay tuned.
Let's go.
All right, take care.